Welcome, everybody, YouTube. It's Clear Vision Wednesday time. I'm Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the creator of the Natural Clear Vision Method and a natural eyesight improvement teacher. And with me today is Trisha Kirby, who is, I'll let her introduce herself, but she is, we met like 2 years ago. You were a student in my program and you work in so many healing modalities already. You've read books about vision improvement, but we were like, you learned from me from the first kind of in-person kind of, tell them a little bit about your background so that everybody knows who you are.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Trisha. I am a natural born intuitive and clairvoyant and trained as a life coach and trained in a bunch of different healing modalities over the years. I came to healing because I was trying to get better from my own problems, being hit by a drunk driver, and then I ended up with acute Lyme disease, but undiagnosed for over 10 years. So that was kind of what got me to that path. But over the years, I was one of those kids in school who was nearsighted because I studied so much, and then I had a lot of stress at home. And I did find a few books as I went along, and I read those, and I can't say I can't even recall having any vision improvement from those books. It wasn't until I found, and I had a few ups and downs. I definitely had improvement, and I'll talk about that a little bit today later. I had improvement along the way through my own life choices and behaviors, but it wasn't until I found Claudia's program that I made significant progress. And I am still a work in progress. I am still reducing my lenses. I have, I think, 6 different pairs of glasses, and depending on my stress level and what's going on in my life and emotions, and I'll talk about that a little bit today too, I alternate out between a little stronger and a little weaker. So like we just had a hurricane that came through in Florida and my eyesight got a little worse. I noticed it, and it was from the stress. So I'm in a little stronger prescription, but overall from the course and from the teachings, I've gone down probably 2 or even 3 diopters. And most of the time I can get by without glasses, and definitely can drive with reduced lenses. Yeah, it's been awesome.
You're close to not needing them on the computer, which is exciting.
Yeah, I am, and I can actually read text on a computer without them, but I still
it's your little safety net, especially when you're live and you're coaching live, and there's always a little bit of that nervous system regulation you're kind of on right when you're speaking. Yeah. And I do so Love Your Eyes is the theme today, which is based on the World Sight Day. We can put let me see if I can put the website into the YouTube chat. But the World Sight Day is I think it's the second Thursday in October. And last year's topic was Love Your Eyes, and this year it's the same. But also that idea of sharing that, right? Sharing that love for your eyes that you have. Maybe you discovered the Bates method on natural vision improvement, and you're really excited about sharing this with others. So today we want to give you 8. I'm always bad with fingers. I'm like, okay, 8 different tips that are easy to implement that you might already be using. Maybe some of them are new to you, that you can also share with anybody who has interest in this. Because one thing I learned for sure is that not everybody wants to hear about these things. And I always talk about like a dandelion, right? The seeds, it's like you blow them in the wind, and sometimes they fall on fruitful ground and blossom into a new flower, and sometimes they don't, and that's also totally okay. So being non-attached to your own mission of maybe helping others is really important. So we came up with the cute little acronym. So Love Eyes, and so we're going to go, so there's 8 letters, and we're going to go through each one by one. And Trisha is going to start with the L in love.
Yes. So the L in love is for leafy greens. And this is about eating better for your eyes. And part of it is the antioxidants, it's the nutrients, but they're literally the lutein and the zeaxanthin in the leafy vegetables, in the colorful vegetables, are eye protective. And they can actually help reverse eye disease if you catch it early enough. I am a huge fan of eating organic vegetables because I not only want the nutrients, but I don't want the pesticides. That's just me. And I go to farmers markets for that, because otherwise you pay a premium price at the grocery store for organic vegetables. But it's just something with me, with all the healing I've done, I needed the organic. I notice a difference when I'm consuming glyphosate. It is not pleasant. So as far as like introducing it to others, one fun way I have found for bringing more leafy greens and vegetables, those colorful, deep colored vegetables, the kales, the broccolis, the deep orange peppers, the red peppers, bringing those into your diet is to try occasionally to grow them yourself. So depending on your growing season, I actually, let me do, so I got like some different kinds of seeds here, and I started a garden a few years ago. By the way, I am not a gardener. I've never been really someone to grow anything other than like herbs and things. So like vegetables is outside of my comfort zone. I got some seeds. I read a lot of online stuff. I talked with some people in the gardening stores, and I started growing my own vegetables. And you can even see some local cities have a seed bank, and you can actually get free seeds at your library. So, and they usually have a limit. They have like 5 different ones or whatever. And they're not a lot. It's not, you don't get 1,000 seeds. You get like 20 seeds of beets or kale or broccoli or whatever. And it's so much fun. And then you can either take cuttings. You can either give these away to your friends and introduce them and say, hey, I am growing a garden for my eyes. So I specifically looked up, and like kale is a really good one. Broccoli is a really good one for eyes. Orange peppers are really good for eyes. I looked up some herbs that are good too. So like I actually grew this is like a little thing of oregano. And it's a Mexican oregano, and it has it's the highest content for a different eye supportive herb nutrient, which is luteolin, not lutein, but luteolin. It's another one that is eye protective. I think this one was for glaucoma or something, but when I looked it up, it was really good, or it reverses some illnesses ahead of time, some eye diseases ahead of time. You can give people cuttings of these. You can give people, once you grow the plant, if it's a flowering plant, you can actually collect the seeds in the fall or when it goes to seed, and grow some more and give people little cuttings, but introduce it to them that way, or cook them a dish that has the foods in it. But make it fun, introduce it in a way where it's not about eating vegetables. Like make the dish fun so that people appreciate it. I had to grow into vegetables. I did not like the taste of vegetables. I admit it. It took me a while. There's like still Brussels sprouts is like a no, but now I can literally, I think I can eat every single vegetables, especially when you grow it yourself. You will come to like it. And in growing and learning about the fertilizers and the different organic pest control things that you do, when you learn all that stuff, you appreciate food so much more. And I really notice, I don't know if anyone has tried this, but when my juicer was still working, when I would juice a lot of carrots, I know you're not supposed to raise your blood sugar this way, but it really does give your eyesight a boost. The vitamin A in the carrots actually does help. I know the sugar isn't good, so I always put the fat in, and I put some other things in it to lower the blood sugar.
Okay. Let's okay. Well, that was a lot of info. I love the idea of gardening and giving away seed packets, and and doing maybe even a community garden. So, but there might be a lot of people listening to this and like, I have no interest in gardening. So going to the farmer's market and getting these leafy green vegetables into your diet. And I remember a coach telling me a couple of years ago, eat something green at every meal. I was like, oh my God, I was eating pasta for lunch, and then some pizza, whatever, in the healthy version, or maybe even a salad, but maybe it was iceberg. Or so getting those, even like chard, mango, that's mango is chard in German, but spinach, all these leafy dark, romaine, like a lot of arugula is really great. A lot of these greens, and you can even bake them into brownies, and you wouldn't know that there's kale or greens in there. So find a way, because I'm with you. I wasn't a big fan of green smoothies. But make it like, add a little bit, this is really good. And one last idea about the gardening, which I love. In my neighborhood, we've created harvest exchanges. So, you might have a ton of one thing, but not other things. So now that we are out of the pandemic, meeting with friends and our neighbors and actually doing a harvest exchange. So leafy greens is the L. I absolutely love your ideas. And I love the little seed packets. That could be great Christmas ideas too. And, or like holiday gifts, especially if you know that somebody likes gardening. I love gardening, but I also know that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But getting them into your diet. Thank you, Trisha, so much for pointing out those additional nutrients also. And the O, so we're coming to the O, and this is like the second, and that's the last piece where we talk about food. So omega-3 fatty acids. In our traditional diet, we get the ratio of omega-6 versus 3s is highly on the omega-6, and that creates inflammation in the body. So we do need these omega-3 fatty acids, and there's so much research out now. It's not just helpful for the eyes. There's a debate whether it helps with dry eye syndrome or not, but you do need these omega-3 fatty acids for your brain health. They have been shown to reduce depression, anxiety, they improve your heart health. I mean, you can just Google benefits of omega-3 fatty acids and you find a huge long list. And a lot of us are coming short because, again, in our traditional food, and especially all the inflammatory oils that you're getting, canola oil, sunflower seed oil, safflower seed oil, all the stuff that's in processed food is really inflammatory. So here's a couple of ideas for omega-3s. You like flax. So if you're, I'm vegan, but if you're not, salmon, right? Some fatty fish is good. Other than that, it's also flax seeds and chia seeds have the highest bang for the buck in terms of gram per, in terms of the omega-3s. Also hemp seeds and walnuts. So those are like the 4 main plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And I additionally supplement. So you can use fish oil. I use algae based because that's what the fish eats. But you want to get about, depending on your symptoms, but I'm tracking almost 2 grams of, which is 2000 milligrams of EPA and about 1000 milligrams of DHA. So that's the 2 components in omega-3 fatty acids. And that's, I mean, first of all, it's challenging to know how much you get from your food unless you use a food tracking app like Chronometer where you put everything in. So I use supplementation as an additional kind of guarantee that I get enough of this because, again, unless we measure everything, we don't always know how we fall into those things. And again, for most of us, it's kind of challenging to get enough in. Anything you want to add to the omega-3 fatty acids, Trisha?
I would say vary the brand and the type. So like don't monocrop your vitamins. Like don't take just sardine oil or just the algae or just the flaxes, or even if you do the flax, do different kinds. One day you can do some flax seeds where you grind them up fresh and put them on your oatmeals, or you can do the flax oil as a liquid that's refrigerated. You can do the flax not tablets, but the soft gels. Vary the type, vary the form that you're getting it in, vary the brand that they're like alternate. I just alternate things. I think it's really important to do that. Otherwise, it's even with probiotics, it's just not a good idea to monocrop. I call it monocropping, but don't monocrop your vitamins. Vary it and vary the type and the consistency and the way that you're consuming it.
That's a great idea. So don't rely just on one thing. That's the same with the leafy greens, right? You don't want to just eat kale. You want to make sure you vary them, especially if it has high oxalates. So you want to make sure you get a variety of greens. You get a variety of different omega-3 fatty acid sources. So the next letter is Trisha's turn. It's V in love.
Yes, V. So V, the V and LOVE is we came up with view. So this is thinking in terms of what are we viewing in the world. And we just talked about how you consume things like food and vitamins and how those benefit your eyes. But I'm talking about the consumption that your eyes are doing when you're viewing the world. So everyone these days almost everyone is one way or another connected to social media, to the news, etc., through a device, a technology device, their phone or an iPad or a computer. And they're looking at those things, and you are consuming content into your eyes through these devices. And what ends up happening, at least I've noticed it, is that you don't do yourself any favors reading a lot of negative stuff. And I don't know if anyone else, I know for me, like I was kind of lucky because I lost power right away in the hurricane, but other people across the United States were watching all this footage of the hurricane. It was like hour after hour after hour. And I know everybody in Florida did it. People were posting, this is the thing in Florida, you guys may not have seen it, but on Facebook, people were posting how many hours their phones were saying, oh, your phone usage is up by 1,000% this week for 13 hours a day, being on the phone because everyone was watching the news on their phones and looking at the horrible pictures and like watching the storm coming and then the aftermath. And I promise you, your eyes take a stress hit from that. So view was about seeing what you're consuming with your eyes. Are you consuming things that are kind of toxic for your eyes and kind of stressful for your eyes, or are you consuming things that are more positive and beneficial for your eyes? So the negative would be things that aren't that positive on social media. They would be like the news, they will be politics, they would be the war, anything that's going on that's not positive is toxic. It's toxic for your eyes. It's not good for you. And then if you want positive things, so one thing I do, and you can do this with Instagram, you can do this with Facebook, any social media that you have, if you're on social media, I not that I unfollow, but I'll snooze a lot of things that are really negative, and then I will allow things that are in my news feed. And think about feed. That's even the wording of Facebook is about the feed, news feed. It's feeding you news. I make sure it's positive stuff. I look at like animal rescue, things that are positive. I look at tips that I can get, art groups. I join groups that will fill the feed, the news feed for my eyes with positive things that are like, that I feel are beneficial. I'm learning something, I'm gaining something, in some way it's positive. If it's negative, and if I do happen to look at negative stuff, because I mean, I want to be in touch with the world a little bit at least, but I'll look at a little bit of the news stuff, and I'll just send some prayers. I'll send some light to it. If you have the money and you're able to donate money or time to these organizations, find some charities that you can donate to and make it positive. As far as like putting positive things in your eyes, I'm an artist, so I love colors. I'll have literally books of colors. I will have lots of beautiful, my house is filled with art, 'cause I'm also an artist. So I have a lot of art around the home. I have beautiful things to look at. I make sure that there's flowers in the garden that I see. I make sure that I do stained glass. I have stained glass windows up in the windows. I have a lot of beauty around me, but you can get things even just for pictures on your screensaver on your computer or on your phone. I have folders on the phone and the iPad on the computer too, with beautiful images in it. So I'll collect images of mandalas. I collect images. I like libraries and books. So I have pictures of like libraries around the world, and I'll just look at those, and it's like food for my eyes. It's something that makes my immune system feel nice and calm and relaxed. And I like to feed myself positive things. So that's another. So it's about so view the world in terms of like how you're seeing things around you and how it is affecting you emotionally. Pay attention to that.
I love that. It's like, is it nourishing or not? I mean, and you can share this with others by giving them beautiful things or reminding them of beautiful things. And I want to add one thing to this, because I've heard this a lot from my clients. How can I relax in this world? There's so much going on, the war in Ukraine, like all this stuff. And I recently heard somebody say, like, when you can actually do something, when you can donate money, when you can do something, when you can actually actively help one way or the other, yes, immerse yourself with that, because you will nourish the world and yourself. But if it's something where you have absolutely no chance of doing anything that changes the situation, why get so stressed out about it? Because the calmer we all are, think of yourself as this piece of calm, the seed of calm. And the more you spread that, everybody else will relax. So that's what I sometimes think about. It doesn't mean that I don't care what's happening. Yes, and maybe limit your time where you do that feed. I love that concept, Trisha, of feeding, right? Maybe it's not like being oblivious what's going on, but really limit that time and how much it impacts you. And really, the more you protect yourself, the calmer you are, the better of a energetic level you add to your whole community, to everybody that you get in touch with. So I think view is such a beautiful way you describe it. And I like to think of the nourishing feed, right? The nourishing things that my eyes are seeing. And for me, clutter is one of those things, right? So, maybe even organize your home, make it really nice and beautiful, maybe help a friend who feels overwhelmed. My sister is coming again to help me because I'm packing up for a move, and she loves to organize. So maybe you can be that person that helps somebody else make their home a little nicer. Maybe you have a talent just the old view, because our house is where most of us spend a lot of time. And we have the control over that place or that space. So the next letter is E, and E obviously eyes. And in this case, I want to talk a little bit about, eyes, closing your eyes. So we are often having our eyes open all day long when we don't really need to do that, and just closing them, and blinking is one of those little mini things you can do to close them. But how about all of us right now closing your eyes? When you are assuming you're in a safe place, when you're listening to this, there's nothing you need to worry about, but just simply closing your eyes and checking in with yourself, maybe taking a few deep breaths. If you know what palming is, you can always do palming, but maybe you just want to do something that doesn't feel such a big production, or you don't want others to be around you asking, what are you doing? So just simply closing your eyes, tuning in to sounds around you, to your breath, and then bring up a happy memory. something, especially if you've been exposed to this negative feed or something has been upsetting, bring up a happy memory of either an imaginary thing or a real thing or a place or a person, something where you feel, oh yeah. It's almost like going on a mini vacation. And when you want to come out of this, and this is, by the way, great to do, maybe sometimes you're on Zoom calls, but you don't really need to look at the chat, or you're just listening to somebody talk. You don't always need to look at things. So just giving your eyes that little bit of a break, that little bit of a rest. And instead of just opening your eyes, you can do something what we call flashing. It's kind of a reverse blink. So you just quickly open your eyes for a split second and close them again. And just notice in that split second what you saw. This is a great way to practice receiving the light, receiving information, realizing how vision is really easy and effortless, and there's no strain needed to see. And then maybe you turn around a little bit and you do it again. You just briefly open your eyes, and you'd be amazed how many things you saw in that split second without making any effort whatsoever. And when you want to come out of it, you simply blink your eyes open, and now we're back here, but resting your eyes or closing your eyes. So either just closing them. Blinking is like the simplest thing, where you just do these little mini closing of your eyes, little breaks. Blinking, just closing your eyes, or palming. Those are different ways to rest your eyes, which mine are already so lubricated just from closing my eyes. I haven't even done palming. And you might feel like, oh, my dry eyes are just much better, and I don't have dry eye anymore. Anything you want to add to that piece, Patricia?
Just that it's a really valuable technique. But I think it's underestimated how valuable it is to just rest and then bring forth a happy memory and tune into that. But that is like a keystone element out of techniques like heart math and just even regular meditation, is bringing forth that energy, and it's really good for you. It's very heart protective, it's eye protective, and it's immune system supportive. But it's such a super simple thing to do. It's so easy, and people might overlook it because it's so easy, but it is really valuable.
And also what's really important is that it's basically it's because a lot of times people think it's just physical, right? It's like palming or closing your eyes, it's just physical. But bringing your mind to that happy place, it's super important to relax the brain and bring the brain back, because that helps to the vagus nerve, your whole body. The brain and body communicate all the time. And so it's kind of a two-way street, so to speak. So if your mind is thinking about the news or something stressful, it won't have the same relaxing effect. That's why I'm saying bring up a happy memory or something that just makes you feel like really good. All right, moving on. So now we covered love, and now we're doing eyes, and it's another E, and Trisha is going to cover the next E.
Yes, another E. So the E in eyes is for expression. And this was about expressing things towards yourself. And since we were just talking about resting the eyes and calming the mind and thinking about happy memories, those are kind ways to treat your mind and your emotions and your eyes. But what I have noticed in practice as a clairvoyant, and also I work a lot with people with trauma, I receive referrals from doctors and psychologists too, and is that universally, when things are going on emotionally, like people are going through anxiety, or they have anger issues, or they're going through fear or doubt, the self-talk is staggeringly negative. And I think it's almost a program that runs so constantly that people just get used to it and it becomes unconscious. So expressing, it's the expression of you towards yourself in your own mind, and what paying attention to, are your thoughts positive toward yourself? Are they encouraging? Are you like your own cheerleader, or are you your worst critic, where you're constantly saying, oh, you could have done that better, and paying attention. We oftentimes, people are so unkind in their minds. Like, you would never talk to your best friend that way. You would never talk to a family member that way. You would never talk to your pet the way that you talk to yourself in your mind. So really paying attention to how you're treating yourself in your own mind. And if it's really negative, then kind of back away from that. I don't say try to jump straight from, okay, negative self-talk to positive self-talk, but neutral. Go to a neutral place. And if you have a constant voice like that, start training it. start looking at it, start practicing some meditation, some calming techniques, maybe even some EFT, or like we've talked about havening before, some of those psychosensory techniques. But it's really getting to a place where you tame and train that voice in your head to at least be neutral. I sometimes, if something negative comes up, like I make a mistake or I drop something or whatever, I'll say, okay, well, that was interesting. And I try not to judge it anymore. I try to kind of let that go. And then eventually, once you're neutral for a little while, then you can kind of start moving it to positive and start being your own cheerleader and saying, hey, you did that really well. Congratulations. Be your own person that provides yourself encouragement and reward. And then as far as sharing this with other people, pay compliments to people. Notice things about people that maybe they didn't notice themselves, or maybe that, because you never know what kind word you're going to say to someone and how it's going to change their day. I mean, I know I learned a lot about this actually, not just, I mean, I grew up in a teaching environment. So my mom was a teacher. So I knew a lot about like praising kids. Praise works so much better than punishment. And we punish ourselves in our heads. But I learned a lot about that from rescue animals too. So when you get an animal that comes from a shelter that's like scared and they have anxiety and they've had some bad experiences, and this is with humans like too, like adverse childhood experiences, praise them. Create a safe space for them. Tell them what's good. Find the good in them and remind them of that. Encourage that light within them to come out. And that's a lot about coaching too, but it's about seeing the best quality in someone. And I'm really good at that. I like tune into the person's soul. So I look at the soul of the person and I look at like, why are they here? What's their best side? And I bring out those attributes. And I love doing that. I love tuning into people and going, oh, I see why you're here. I see those best attributes. And I kind of remind them of that so that they see their own good and their own soul, and then they can expand on that. And I just noticed that the animals and the people blossom when you focus on the good in them.
I love that. So expression is that expression. How do you express thoughts about yourself, how others, and I love how you said coming to a neutral place, because let's say with vision, very common, right? Oh, I can't see anything. I'm blind as a bat. We're saying all these things, and then I dig a little deeper and you're like, are you really blind? Oh, no, I can see you. I'm like, so maybe a statement I can see clearly doesn't seem relevant, right? But you can say, I can see, or I feel safe, or you can say certain things that seem true, that don't seem like you're making up something that you're not aligned with. And then slowly you go to that place where you really want to go. And the more you can imagine that, and the more you can express that, right? Even with words, I caught myself saying a lot, I should do this, I should do that. You know, like this is a habit that we might all have. And if you have good friends, you can also call them out. Like this is not anybody, but I sometimes appreciate when somebody says, did you notice, or do you notice that you're saying this or that a lot? Because again, like Trisha just said, it's a lot of times it's unconscious. And sharing compliments with others is such an easy way. I was walking on the beach the other day and this woman looked at me and she smiled at me. She said, you just radiate happiness. I'm like, wow, I was just like, you know, just walking along. And so, my God, that made my whole day. So you can make, and receiving actually gratitude, receiving compliments is actually even more powerful than giving it. So, but if you give it to somebody, it's that ripple effect. The more you give that, the more you get back in the end. But don't give it with the idea, I want you to get the same amount back. But this just naturally happens because people feel attracted to you. So that expression is so, I love what you said about the neutral state in between, because sometimes it feels like too much of a jump to go to that, you know, but think of like, oh, I'm poor, I can't afford this. You know, what can you afford? Like focus on like that neutral state and then move on to the next one. Or I can see, everybody can say, I can see, unless you're completely blind, right? You can see. And even if you're completely blind, you might still see, you know, in your inner vision. So do these little baby steps. The next letter is the Y, and the letter Y. I mean, I can talk about why, but why it's important to have a good why for vision improvement. But I wanted to give you a simple thing that you can share with your friends, yawning. This was literally the very first thing I learned in my very first book that I ever read on vision improvement when I was a teenager, and yawning. So yawning, you know, when you look at animals, Trisha always has a cat there behind her, but you know, they when they get up, they always yawn. So yawn a little bit, maybe stretch yourself. Stretching and yawning is what all the animals do. And first of all, it helps you to stretch those often tight jaw muscles that they can get really tight. it lubricates your eyes, and it just keeps you, it creates that relaxed state. The second you yawn, you cannot be anxious, right? And it's where we say it's contagious. And I think in our culture, we often say, oh, don't yawn, you're like doing it behind and when you go to vision teacher conferences, you see everybody yawning, like nobody's trying to hide it, because we know how good it feels. So yawning is the why in eyes. But I also want to attach a little bit of that, like the reason you are successful in vision improvement is because you have a big why. And this is the word WHY, right? The big why is why this is important to you to see clearly. So that's kind of also not so much maybe when you talk to friends or when you want to spread the love for your eyes. But basically, this is something people that keep saying would be nice not to wear glasses, they're not going to make those changes. But yawning is one of those simple things you can share with people and be like, you know what, did you know that you're actually helping your vision when you yawn? And everybody who doesn't love yawning, right? So that's the why. And then Trisha is going to cover the last S.
Oh, E.
Oh, I'm sorry, E. We have another E. Yes. Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. There's another E.
Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna piggyback on the why thing and say one of my big whys for wanting clear vision is when I'm out in nature. The only time I ever had an experience where I literally lost my glasses, I went windsurfing with my boyfriend. Long time ago. This is like college boyfriend. Went windsurfing and we were together on the board, like the same board, right? And then of course the wind threw us off because of the sail and went down, and I lost my glasses when I fell in the water. And I couldn't see to get home. So, and it sucked. But I would love to be able to have clear vision for snorkeling at the beach, so I can see.
What does the E stand for? Explain that.
I'm getting there. It's for
environment. Sorry.
So my why is seeing better in the environment. So E is for the environment. And the reason I mention that, so one of the times when I ended up with an improvement in my vision with no effort, I didn't make any changes. It was nothing intentional, but what I was doing was part of my job. And that was when I was a park ranger out west, and I was working at a lighthouse along the California coastline north of San Francisco. It was Point Reyes National Seashore, and I was whale spotting. So for the visitors that would come to the park, I would look out to a distance and see if we could see gray whales, because the gray whales, as part of their migration, would swim right by the lighthouse. So you could literally look down from the lighthouse and see the whales swimming by. Beautiful. And I spent 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 hours a day looking at a distance 20 miles out. Just look for the spouts or look for the backs of the whales. And my vision got a lot better in a fairly short period of time. And I had no idea it had improved until I was getting headaches, went to see the eye doctor, and they said, oh, your glasses are way too strong. And I thought, oh my gosh, wow. So it was the sunshine, it was looking at a distance. So looking at a distance relaxes the eye muscles in a way that nothing else does. It's like it's one of the best things that you can do. And of course, everyone here is on their phones and they're on their computer and they're reading books and they're indoors. You're not looking at a distance if you're doing any of those things. So being outside in nature, E for environment, is experiencing nature, experiencing that distance vision. You can go out at nighttime and look at the stars. I had a friend who took up astronomy when he retired, and he was a homicide detective for the Tampa police, and his vision got so much better. He literally was completely out of glasses, and he had worn glasses for 30 years, and all he was doing was looking at the stars at nighttime. He was out looking at the stars at nighttime, and his vision improved. Yeah. And then mine improves when I'm at the beach looking over any kind of vista. I look at the horizon line of the water, but you can, if you live in a mountain area, look across at the mountains. You can look at the sunset, you can look at the sunrise, but just looking out to the infinity, to the horizon line, is really good for that. It's so helpful. It's so relaxing to the eyes, and make it something that you do as a habit before you go to bed, like looking at a distance before you go to bed. Don't be like reading on the phone or on the computer or on a book, and then you go straight to bed with that, your eyes focused at that near point. You want your eyes to be relaxed, focused at that far point like that. And sharing it with others, go out with others to look at the distance, go to the beach with a friend, go sit on a dock and look out and watch a sunset, go on a hike with a friend in the mountains, go traveling where you're looking at different new things and it feels comfortable and safe for you, and you're letting those muscles relax in the eyes.
I love that environment idea. And not everybody has the horizon line available to them. but just going out into nature, and also even like the environment of your office, like I have my computer against the window. And so I'm not looking at the horizon here. I'm not at the beach, but I'm looking, like 30 feet into the distance. So letting your eyes explore that. And I want to share two quick stories. First of all, I met a park ranger that was near Monterey. I forgot the park, what it was called. And he was like clearly older, like in his 70s, didn't wear glasses. And he was spotting out whales and birds and all these things. So I'm always curious when I'm like, did you have cataract surgery? That's usually he said, no. I'm like, but your vision seems to be really great. And he told me the same thing, since he used to wear glasses and he started working as a volunteer park ranger, and his vision improved where he didn't need glasses anymore. Wow. So, and I was on a podcast a couple of years ago, and there was Alex, now I forgot her podcast name, but she said, let me do a little experiment. She was a -125, so pretty minor myopia, but myopic, right? So she would always wear her glasses on her hikes, on her daily walks. She said, let me do an experiment. I'm not going to wear my glasses for the next 2 weeks. And sure enough, she just went on hikes or her morning walks without glasses, and the glasses were too strong after 2 weeks. I gave her some things to practice too, some palming and some other things. She didn't even do any of those. And just not wearing the glasses really improved her vision, and being outside and looking into the distance. So that was really beautiful. And like you said, invite a friend, or, make it fun, and also tell people about it. Maybe encourage them. Hey, if it's okay for you, let's take the glasses off, or if you're nearsighted, look up and look around, because I see that a lot too when you hike, where you just look at your feet. You know what I mean? So encourage people in a gentle way, not to the point where you're a nag. But I always say, do you really need your glasses, or how is it, when you take them off? Depending on the situation, of course, they need to feel safe.
Yeah.
Love the story about the night sky too.
Yeah, and pay attention to when you look at a distance, and then you bring and do it for, casually resting for like 30 seconds to a minute or so or more, and then bring your attention back to the near point and see if your vision improved. Because I noticed, like, I've been going to the beach and walking super early in the morning, like 6:30, and I'll take my lowest prescription glasses that I can get away with. I don't really need glasses at the beach, but I still like having them because I want to be able to see a dolphin if I see a dolphin at a distance. But I'm nearsighted, myopic for now. When I look at a distance and I'm looking out over the water for a while, and then I look down, I notice I could see the shells better. I notice that they're clearer. And if I focus too much on the shells and I see, I feel the strain, and I notice it, and I'm like, okay, back to the distance again, and look at the distance a little bit, look down again, everything's clear again. It all clears up. So just noticing the strains again, when you're straining and when you're relaxing.
Yeah, we could do a whole session on environment, but we just wanted to highlight that idea of going out in nature and setting up your environment in a way where it supports your vision versus working against yourself, right? And within your limitations of your day or your job or your work, how can you find times where you can go outside, look far, look in nature? There's always possibilities if you are really, wanting to do this. So the last S is, you might have guessed it, sunlight. And sunlight is now finally going back to we have these waves of like, sunlight is really bad, sunlight is really good. So it goes up and down, but we are scientists finally discovering how important sunlight is and sunlight exposure. So there's many reasons for sunlight exposure, but one simple thing that's important, and I love that Andrew Huberman talks about it in his podcast, and he's a professor of ophthalmology and neurobiology at Stanford. He talks about the sunlight and not wearing sunglasses, and especially in the morning and the evening, getting that sunlight, because that helps with your circadian rhythms. That helps you to get tired in the evening. So getting sunlight in the morning, or natural light, even if it's overcast, but going outside first thing in the morning, getting that natural light, and then also in the evening before the sun goes down, so that you have that inner clock set. And of course, in the Bates method and natural vision improvement, we work with something called sunning, where you learn safe exposure to sunlight that helps you train your pupillary reaction. So if you don't know sunning, we have a separate episode on sunning, but the simplest thing you can just think about is closing your eyes, facing the sun, and then turning your head side to side in a slow motion. And notice how that the eye that's, I'm assuming the sun is right here, that's in the shade, that's a little darker. And when you go through center, it's a little brighter. And just that slight little difference behind the closed eyelids is already helping you improve your pupillary reaction, and the pupils will constrict just a little bit and open up a little bit. So, and then night vision. So for me, as an example, and for many of my students, they struggle with night driving because of the strong headlights of cars, and then the night, especially if you drive on a country road. So when I stopped wearing sunglasses, and I always say the disclaimer that I do wear sunglasses in extreme conditions like snow on a, you know, and skiing, but just normal conditions. I haven't worn sunglasses in 20 years. And night driving used to be so challenging. And now I don't mind because my eyes, I have reduced the light sensitivity, right? And that's the kind of point of sunning or sunlight exposure, is because if you're like, eyes are light receivers, right? Like just like ears are sound receivers. So if the ears will be sensitive to sound, right, how can you properly hear? So reducing that light sensitivity in a safe and relaxed way. And maybe you just encourage friends, you know, do you really need sunglasses today? Maybe just wear a cap or a hat, you know, sometimes it's just the angle of the sun, and just, or maybe instead wear blue blockers, but encourage people, educate them that sunlight is so important for our health on all levels. It's not just the vitamin D. We need sunlight into our eyes. Our whole brain bases the feed for the eyes on sleep cycles, on hormones. All these things are really important. So we do need that natural light. And, you know, yeah, that's basically it. So I used to be the person who throws the sunglasses on the second I step outside, and my eyes never really got natural light. And consequently, I had vision problems. So, so that's just, you know, don't fear the sunlight, be smart about it, of course, right? We have different sensitivities, we have different skin colors. So not everybody should run around, and so we don't talk about sunscreen here today, but you should definitely be smart about the sun, right? It's, you know, don't do something crazy where you never wear sunglasses, even if it's extremely bright and you're in snow for like a month every day in bright blue skies. But I'm talking about our general daily life. Sunlight is really good for you and important. So
yeah, and I'll add, if you're one of these people that has worn sunglasses all your life, because I know in Florida it is super common for people to wear sunglasses. That's where I live in Florida. It's very bright, it's very sunny. People wear their sunglasses, even indoors sometimes. I will say that most of the time I'm not that light sensitive because I have been doing the sunning and the palming, and so I don't have it. But I will say, after I was indoors for about 3 days straight with the hurricane passing through, and we had a ton of rain. It was very dark outside. Like literally I had to I didn't have lights because the power went out. I had like flashlights in the house because it was so dark in the house. 3 days. And then when it finally broke and the storm passed and we had the sun finally come out again, and I still didn't have electricity, but I went outside and it was so bright. I was like, oh my God, it's like painfully bright. And the air is so clear after you've had that much rain. And it hurt my eyes. And I thought, wow, I'm like sun sensitive. I can't believe it. So if you just pause for a moment and you, like Claudia was describing with the sunning, like you have your eyes closed, you look towards the sun, and you can just shift your head back and forth a little bit, or you can just eyes closed again, looking towards the sun. So you have that bright light coming into your eye, in your closed eyes. Just do that for 10, 15 seconds, and it will help your eyes adjust. And then when you open, it won't feel as bad. It won't feel as sensitive.
that's a really great tip, you know, and also know when there is a level of brightness that is too much for you. Yeah. And, you know, use some of those glasses that don't have a really, really dark tint, because then your pupils open up really brightly, big behind the glasses. So you would just want a little bit of a tint for sunglasses. Anyway, so those were our 8 tips, and I'm going to review them really quickly. So L was for leafy greens, which give you lutein and zeaxanthin. O was for omega-3 fatty acids, which are really important for brain health and eye health and overall heart health, for everything. V was the view, right? What did you feed? Like, what are you viewing all day? What are you letting into your view? E, the first E was about eye rest. So simply closing your eyes, blinking or palming, giving your eyes a little bit of that little break. Then the next E was expression, right? How do you express? How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk to others? Like, how do you express yourself? Is it all negative, or are you in a more positive mindset? Because at the end of the day, most things are mindset related. Y was for yawning. So yawning is lubricating your eyes. It's relaxing your muscles. It helps you to just feel really good. And then the next E and I's was environment, right? You talked about getting out in nature, looking at the distance, like do you have a supportive environment for your eye health? And the S was for sunlight, so getting that natural light. So I'm going to look if we have any questions on YouTube. I love sunset. Okay, I love looking at the distance. Love your stories. Okay, Hannah is saying she loves her stories. So I don't see any questions on YouTube, and I don't think we have any questions here in the Clear Vision Club group. We do not have a handout yet. We had these tips for a while, but we came up with the acronym yesterday, so we don't have that ready. But that's a good idea so love is the acronym, and I will put it in the YouTube description as well, so that we have that you know what that means. Yay. Thank you, Trisha. So yeah, basically, anything, and you don't feel like you have to use all of these things, depending on the person that you're talking to, right, Trisha? Like, maybe you have a friend that likes to garden, and maybe they like the idea of, planting more, vegetables that are healthy for their eyes or good for their eyes. For me, I usually plant things that, that reap benefits, like kale, right? Or chard, I use that sometimes for 2 years. It just keeps growing. And I also grow things that we do need to buy organically based on the Dirty Dozen. So that the vegetables that have a spray with the most amount of pesticides, you can grow those. And, I don't like to grow something where I just have one fruit at the end. Like, to me, I like broccoli. I mean, I like things where I like tomatoes, where you can just pick and pick and pick, and you have a really bountiful harvest. So feel like whatever tips work for you also. And I'm curious, anybody here listening on YouTube, Melanie, that was so wonderful. Maybe there's some things that are your favorites. And if you connect that to a story, people love stories, right? So if you have a story about something, how Trisha talked about being a park ranger and how that helped to improve her vision, or, looking in the distance and how a near vision gets better, like any stories that you have, I always the best way to kind of help somebody, like, see that kind of new view for them. Maybe they've been trained all day, all year, all their life. You can't do anything about your vision. So anything you want to add, Trisha? Anything you want to add to the sharing with others, and how you can do that in a good way, or help?
I'll tell one funny story, because you mentioned that you don't want to grow a plant that only has one little reward at the end. Like broccoli, you grow broccoli, you only get like one head of broccoli, and that's it. I mean, it's kind of a bummer, but I'll say it is because it's a lot of work. I agree. So I grew some cabbage. I know it was actually 2 years ago. I grew some cabbage 2 years ago, and most of them were one head of cabbage. Well, one wasn't, and I figured it got in the wrong batch or something, to seed, because it's still outside and it's still growing, and it got to be about 5 feet tall. Whoa. And cabbage, I know, right? Because here's the thing: I didn't know there was such a thing as a tree cabbage. And it's now 2 years old. It keeps growing. It keeps renewing all the time. It's not a ball cabbage. It has all these beautiful cabbage leaves. It's beautiful, and I didn't know what it was. It took me a while to figure that out. So yeah, there's things that you can grow that are like, they grow more than 1 year, and you get quite a long harvest from them. So, but you do need to do a little bit of research on that, because I would not have even known tree cabbage existed until I got that one by accident that grew so big outside my house, and it's still there. Yeah. As far as, yeah, share your wins with people. When you notice something that helps you, share it. Tell a story and share it with people. Stories are really powerful. Personal experiences are really powerful. And when you can feel it from your heart, and you benefited from it in some way, and you feel like someone's open to that information, then share it with them in like a positive, gentle, non-pushy, non-nagging way, always with good energy and good intent. Like, I'm just sharing a story here. You don't have to listen. It's okay. Take what you want. It's like a buffet. From today, anything that you learned that was positive for you, take the good things that you want. If it doesn't resonate yet, maybe it will resonate again some other time, or you'll have a different circumstance, and you'll be able to like grow a little garden or something. I never thought I'd be a gardener. I really didn't. And then I got so much benefit from it. I know. I truly, truly have loved it. And my cats ended up eating vegetables too. They're not vegan. They're not vegetarian. They still eat meat, but they ended up eating a lot of vegetables from my garden. They would like steal it off my plate kind of stuff. So I ended up having
I have a video of my daughter's cat when she used to live with me, and I bought a bunch of kale from the farmer's market, and it was sticking out of the bag, and the cat was eating the kale. And I sent that to my daughter. She's like, "Mom, don't turn noodles into a vegetarian." I'm like, "No worries." She was just nibbling on the kale and liking it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. This was Clear Vision Wednesday. If you are interested in learning more, if you're watching on YouTube, there is a link if you're interested in the Clear Vision Club. I also have a 21 Days to Better Eyesight Experience program that runs every month. We start the next group in November. I will put the link into the YouTube description. It's not in there right now, but you can always reach me or reach us at support@myholisticvision. If you have any questions, you can also comment on the YouTube video if you're watching it as a replay. I do my best to respond to all comments, and Trisha will also, if she has anything that a question for her, I will make sure she sees the question. And then just quick announcement. So next week we have vision teacher Esther Joy van der Werf on talking about sunlight. So is it misguided? Is the fear, that she's still going to talk about sunlight? And then the week after, vision teacher Peter Grunwald, who lives in New Zealand, and he also teaches in Europe, he came out with a second book called Soulful Seeing. And so we're going to talk about the emotional aspect and the soul part of the seeing versus the physical part. And he wrote a book called he has a method called Eye Body Method. And so he actually mapped out parts of the eyes to organs in the body. And so those are the next 2 sessions coming up. I'm super excited about bringing on some colleagues of mine that have done their own research and work into areas, like really deep dive. So that's going to be the next 2 Clear Vision Wednesdays. So if you watch this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to my channel and, and share this with other people. This is part of the spreading the love. Share this channel with other people. Also, my Instagram is in there. And I think, Trisha, if you have any social media, we will put that in there as well. But follow us and share this with as many people as possible, because you never know where it lands. And you never know what a difference you can make in somebody's life. So bye, YouTube. We will see you next week.